What makes a good football manager? Getting the right players? Yes!
No way! Yes! Come on!
Decision making? Are you sure? Wheeling and dealing? Nah. Relying on star players. Listen, don't let me down, you know. At the end of the day, it's about getting results, man.
Yes!
Listen, this player's on a madness. Open packs, collect players, pick your team, and crush the competition. You think you got what it takes? This is next level fantasy football. Ultimate Fan. Build your legacy. Download the app today at ultimatefan.com. I'm killing it.
Hello and welcome back to another episode of the Ultimate Fan Fix, brought to you in association with Ultimate Fan and presented by Beer 52. £15,000 was given away on the Ultimate Fan app on game week 1 of the Premier League, and a further £8,500 is up for grabs for the next round of fixtures this upcoming weekend, kick-starting on Saturday at 12:30 with a fixture between Liverpool and Burnley. Tom, I'll come to you first. Game week 1 reflection. We identified a few sort of big hitters in the Ultimate Fan scoring system. Bruno Fernandes, Mohamed Salah, Ricardo Pereira, Danny Ings, all picked up points aplenty on the opening weekend. Bruno Fernandes scoring 36 Ultimate Fan points. And probably the one to catch your eye the most as Manchester United dismantled Leeds.
Yeah, I mean, I only picked Ings, Ings, yeah. So I only really got one out of my 4 predictions. I'll hopefully do better this week. But yeah, Fernandes was so good. Popped up with a hat trick, caused Leeds all sort of problems. He just sort of like did what he does, and he doesn't exactly influence games massively, but he just scores. And obviously, goals win games. So, yeah, I mean, you can't really overlook Pogba either. He was really good. When he's on it, he is, world class. 4 assists, 5 key passes. He probably should have scored as well. He had a good chance in the first half. I think when it was 0-0. But yeah, Bruno Fernandes was obviously the sort of player of the week, though.
Yeah, no, well, we'll give you a bit of credit, Tom. I actually totted up the Ultimate Fan points from the 10 players we identified. 96 points in total, which I think is a pretty good start to proceedings for the Premier League season. But as you say, most of those arrived courtesy of Bruno Fernandes, who obviously got the Red Devils season off to a flyer. I'll stay with you for now, Tom. Raphael Varane was, of course, unveiled at Old Trafford prior to the game last weekend. What do you think he can add to their squad? Obviously, a very well-respected defender, formerly of Real Madrid, and obviously a World Cup winning centre-back for France.
As you've just sort of alluded to there, he's a winner, first of all. He's won the Liga, the Copa del Rey, Champions League, the Super Cup, the Club World Cup, and obviously, as you said, the World Cup. He's experienced, 28 years old, played sort of over 200 games for Real Madrid, and he comes from a big club as well. So he's got that sort of experience of playing for a big club. He's not going to crumble under the pressure of playing at Old Trafford. Play it like as some players can do. Centre half obviously is not going to bring goals. He only scored 11 for Real Madrid. In the league, I think, throughout his time there, but I think he'll work really well with Maguire, because at Real Madrid he was sort of really good at defending in the transition. So Madrid would press high, try to win the ball high, and if that didn't work, he'd sort of use his athleticism, and he's really good at reading the game. So he'd use that to stop any sort of counters. He's a complete defender. He's dominant in defensive duels. He is comfortable on the ball, and I think he'll work really well next to Maguire. I said at Real Madrid, you had Sergio Ramos playing next to him, who's a bit more aggressive, which allowed him to be that sort of not sweeper, but someone that's not bit more of a passive defender. And Maguire is similar to Ramos in that he'll get stuck in, and I think it'll be a very good signing for United.
Yeah, as you allude to as well with Harry Maguire, who I thought was very impressive for England, and I think has really fitted into that role at Old Trafford. And I think Ole Gunnar Solskjaer's men, based on what we've seen so far, probably shouldn't be overlooked as title contenders, particularly with Varane, as you say, and Jadon Sancho coming in as well. Plenty of firepower there, and the perfect start for them against Leeds. Reece, moving across Manchester, Pep Guardiola's City. It's now 3 competitive games without a goal. Of course, got beat in the Champions League final, 1-0. Lost to Leicester in the Community Shield, 1-0. And then were beaten by Spurs thanks to a goal from Heung-min Son on Sunday. The big question, with all this money they've spent, £100 million on Jack Grealish, which, a topic we've kind of talked to death, just feels like they've failed to really invest in a substantial and long-term replacement for Sergio Aguero.
It's definitely a position I've overlooked for several seasons. I think the expectation of Jesus stepping up to the mark when Aguero eventually left was probably the issue there. Obviously, that's not happened, and City have invested a lot more in sorting the defence out. And it has benefited them in the long term. You need to look at Ruben Dias, did make a huge impact on that side when he joined last year. But as Alex Ferguson once said, attack wins your games, defence win your titles, and that's proven to be the case in the long term for City anyway. But now is the time for a new striker. I think pursuing Harry Kane is the right option for City. And I think it'd be insane for Spurs to ignore offers like Bernardo Silva, 130 million on top of that. I think it's absolutely insane to ignore it. But I think the expectation of Gabriel Jesus obviously held that up. So they definitely need someone up top now that Aguero's gone. They need to fix that as soon as possible.
Yeah, and you look at the likes of Chelsea and Liverpool, who I believe you both predicted would win fairly comfortably against Crystal Palace and Norwich City, respectively. And then all of a sudden, it's kind of, you're 3 points behind. These teams have got kind of winnable games coming up, although they'll look at, games this weekend that they've got coming up as another chance to kind of really extend themselves away from Manchester City, and then Pep's in a bit of danger all of a sudden of kind of the season just moving away from him, fairly early and fairly quickly.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like everybody's taking the mickey out of Arsenal at the moment, and they're technically already out of it. After losing on Friday evening, but the same could be said to City. If you don't get off to a good start, you're in danger already of getting the critics against you, and Pep doesn't need that already as it is. There's a lot of people already against him due to fantasy wise anyway. Pep Roulette is probably the killer of the game, so if you need to really dig in, and obviously Norwich coming up next is probably the nicest fixture they could have asked for in the league. So they should dig themselves out of it straight away.
Yeah, absolutely. That's kind of our reflection on game week 1. No doubt we'll talk about all the other teams across the rest of the show. We'll move on to our Ultimate Fan teams for game week 1. Reece, I'll stick with you. You can't really look beyond the influence of Paul Pogba in your side, as Tom says, 4 assists and the perfect start for any centre midfielder.
I mean, he really silenced his critics in a United shirt on Saturday afternoon, and he proved he can thrive in a red shirt when he's utilised correctly. Obviously the big one was all about that he only plays well in a France shirt, but he really came to fruition on Saturday afternoon, and his pinpoint passing worked perfectly for where Bruno was positioned. They put him in a false 9, and it worked to absolute perfection. And he could well have more to offer for United this season. I don't think he'll get a points return like he offered on Saturday again this season, but he's clearly shown he's got a couple of assists in his locker across the board this season. So with the firepower in front of him as well, I think that he's definitely worth an add to the Ultimate Fan team if you can get hold of him in a pack.
And off your side was Arsenal as well. They were, of course, put to the sword by Premier League new boys Brentford. It's the fourth time in the last 7 seasons that Arsenal have been beaten on the opening weekend. Were they just under strength? Of course, a couple of big players missing. Or do you think, on the evidence of what we saw on Friday night, that the Gunners could be in for a bit of a long season? I know you were quite shrewd on, their chances of perhaps going under the radar.
I just think it was an awkward start. It was a lose-lose situation no matter what. If they beat Brentford, everybody would just go, it's Brentford. But if they lost, everybody would make a big deal out of it, which has obviously been the case. So they were missing big players in Lacazette and Aubameyang. And, without them, they showed no attacking flair. And I think they'll be fine this season. I just think it was a blip. But their next 6 fixtures do not look great. But I just think it was a blip at the end of the day.
A blip for Arsenal, says Reece. They, of course, faced Chelsea in another London derby this weekend. Tom, Villa fought back, but were eventually seen off by Watford at Vicarage Road. They just give themselves a little bit much of an uphill climb in Hertfordshire. Emi Buendia is still an exciting prospect for Dean Smith's side this season, though.
Yeah, definitely. It's just sort of just waiting for the attacking places. Yeah, I think Villa had a very sort of disjointed pre-season, should we say. We had friendlies cancelled from COVID. Yep. They had players injured. Buendia was injured, so he missed a fair chunk of pre-season. Players like Bailey coming in, not being able to train because of quarantine and things like that. And then obviously you've got Jack Grealish leaving, and then 2 assistant managers leaving. It wasn't the best pre-season that you'd want. I mean, look, no, I don't think many teams had the perfect pre-season, but Villa definitely didn't have a very good one. And they really missed Watkins the other day as well. The way he sort of presses from the front, he sets the tempo. I mean, he averaged 17 pressures per game last season, and on Saturday, Ings and Buendia combined for 17 together pressures. So they definitely missed him. His sort of running in the channels and his pressing at the weekend. But yeah, Buendia, he wasn't fit. He didn't look match sharp. But I do expect him to come good. You don't sort of spend 30 million on a player that's not gonna prove his worth. But he's already shown that he can do it in the Premier League as well. When he was playing at Norwich a couple of seasons ago, he was in, I think, the top 4 for chances created, and that's in a poor Norwich side as well. Yeah. And then he went down into the Championship, scored 15 goals, got 15 assists, and helped them get promoted. I think it's just sort of gelling with the other players now. I mean, his sort of best attribute is his vision, sort of dropping deep and then threading those balls. Timu Pukki was thrived off it for the 3 seasons that he was at Norwich. So he's just got to sort of get used to playing with Watkins and Ings, and I'm sure he'll come good eventually.
Yeah, I know you've obviously persisted with him in your team, so you'll be hoping that he can provide the goods. Newcastle, I believe, this weekend for Aston Villa, who of course were beaten by West Ham themselves on Sunday. A bit of a forgettable weekend for me. James Rodriguez was, of course, an astute signing for Everton last season with 6 goals and 4 assists in 23 outings, but with Carlo Ancelotti since leaving to join Real Madrid, it would probably appear that his future lies elsewhere, Tom.
Before I answer that, can I just ask how many points did you get at the weekend?
No comment.
No, James, I don't think he was fit. I don't think he was available for Everton, because I think they had a few sort of COVID cases and things like that. So I'm pretty sure he wasn't fit. I can't see him leaving this summer. As you said, he sort of helped with a few goals and assists last season. But when he was playing, sort of everything good came through him.
Yeah.
And whilst I didn't miss him at the weekend, it'll certainly sort of be an asset to them for the rest of the season.
Yeah, quite right. Perfect start, of course, for Everton, and they were obviously more than capable without the service of James Rodriguez as they beat Southampton 3-1 at Goodison Park. Reece, I'll come to you for your team for game week 2 then. Ivan Toney, who I thought was very impressive, I believe his Premier League debut. Obviously, as Brentford themselves made their Premier League debut against Arsenal last weekend. He's a silver pack player. And I've got a few stats just from the opening weekend. Midfielders, the top performing 20, 40% were silver cards. So obviously good reading for Ivan Toney and people who have him in their team this week.
Yeah, I think there's plenty of value to be found in the silver and the base players. Like, you know, Trevor Chalobah is a base card, and he scored a fair amount of points as well. So, you know, Tony won man of the match against Arsenal, and like, okay, he didn't score, he didn't get an assist, but you know, he did everything else right, and the goals will come. He's proven to be, you know, a threatening presence up top for any club he's played for. So, you know, in League One, he was scoring for fun. In the Championship, he was scoring even more for fun. And, you know, obviously the Premier League's the top level, and he might have more to offer at this level. And he will be vital in Brentford's push for survival. So I think that he'll definitely get in the goal count for Brentford over the next couple of games. And you know, this weekend's a good chance to prove it.
Yeah, of course. I must add actually that it was top 20 forwards, of course. 55% of the top 20 best performing forwards from game week 1 of the Premier League were silver cards. Obviously, yeah, for anyone who has Ivan Toney, Brentford, of course, head to Selhurst Park, I believe, this weekend to take on Crystal Palace. Tom, excuse me. You've obviously persisted with plenty of Manchester City players, Ruben Diaz, Ilkay Gundogan, and Zinchenko.
Yeah, so I did have Chilwell in there, but he didn't play at the weekend, and Mendy was poor, to put it nicely. So yeah, I thought I'll stick Zinchenko in there. They've got Norwich. Hopefully, it'd be a clean sheet, and then Gundogan can either get an assist or a goal. Hopefully.
And for Paul Pogba, I've been on the basis of what we've seen, you know, from the first game. You know, thank God we haven't got Graham Souness on the podcast, because it could be he might be arguing a different side. But you feel like this could finally be the season where, as Reece says earlier, he really kind of, you know, silences the critics. And I suppose the best way of him doing that is to help Manchester United to their first league title since 2013.
Yeah, I mean, he was sort of played sort of off the left on Saturday, which we seen him play there a few times last season. And when he did play that, I'd say that's sort of where he performed best. So if they sort of persists with him, you know, coming in off that left hand side and drifting inside, you know, playing from deep, yeah, I think he'll definitely silence a few critics again this season.
Yeah. Obviously, I've had the pack wasn't too kind to me again. Unfortunately, I've actually added Declan Rice into my team. I thought he had a few very spirited moments as West Ham eased past Newcastle on Sunday, and I'm persisting with Kai Havertz because I think he's a really, really top class player for Chelsea. And I've also swapped Bukayo Saka out, and I've given Rafinha the golden boot. I know it wasn't exactly the best start for Leeds United this season, but I think back on home soil this weekend, obviously with a packed Ellen Road, I think you'll see the best of Marco Bielsa's men. So hopefully we can improve on last weekend's scores, but it's a big if, I have to add. Right then, folks, let's talk match predictions. To conclude the show, of course, we'll do another quick fire whip round for our previews for the upcoming weekend of Premier League action, and then of course an ultimate fan player for you to watch. As I mentioned earlier, 96 points in total, so an average of 9.6 per player from mine, Tom, and Reese's selections. Let's see if we can get any better, guys. Tom, I'll start with you. The opening weekend, the opening fixture of the weekend at 12:30 on Saturday at Anfield. Liverpool take on Burnley.
I mean, this was the sort of fixture last season, wasn't it, where Burnley rocked up, shithouse if I say shithouse a 1-0 win, to sort of end Liverpool's winning streak, that sort of really good record at Anfield.
Yeah.
But with a full crowd back, last weekend, I think 7 of the 10 games were won at home. Whereas last season on the opening weekend, 6 of the 8 games were won by away teams. So there's definitely a home advantage back with a crowd. And I see it being pretty comfortable for Liverpool. I'm going to go 3-0 to Liverpool, and then Mo Salah. I mean, I didn't want to, pick the obvious, but you can't sort of look past him, can you? A goal and 2 assists at the weekend. I expect him to be on the score sheet again.
Mo Salah, another selection this weekend for Tom, and he's predicting a comfortable day at the office for Jurgen Klopp's Liverpool. Moving down to yourself, Reese. Aston Villa host Newcastle United in the second city.
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's straightforward. As much as it kills me to say, I think Villa are going to win this quite comfortably. I mean, they're unbeaten at home against Newcastle in the last 5 fixtures. The last defeat coming 8 years ago. And, Newcastle gave West Ham a scare last week, but, they faded away in the second half, and it'll probably just sum their season up for them anyway. I just think if Villa will bounce back. I think last week as well was just a bit, Watford were just a bit too good for them at the end of the day, and Watford had something to prove, unlike the Villa. So, I think Villa will win it quite comfortably. And my player to watch is Leon Bailey. They brought him on with half an hour left to go against Watford, and he seemed to revitalise the team. And Tom pointed out to me earlier, his stats were, for the half an hour he played were pretty good. He had 4 dribbles with 75% success rate, and he also grabbed an assist as well. So I'd probably say Leon Bailey's the player to watch for me this week.
Reese predicting Aston Villa to get their season up and running at Villa Park, and obviously put more misery on Newcastle and Steve Bruce. Moving down to myself, Selhurst Park, Crystal Palace against Brentford. Palace obviously not the best start for Patrick Vieira, a very, very tough assignment first time out against Chelsea, who of course are a very, very live chance of winning the Premier League this year. But I think Brentford are the ones to side with here. The way they beat Arsenal, they couldn't have really done it any more comfortably. And I actually called them at the start of the season as my dark horses for the season. These kind of unknown entity, slightly smaller clubs. But I think they can go under the radar here, and I fancy them to maintain their 100% start. I think they're going to win this one 2-1 in South East London. And my place to watch here is Sergi Canos, who of course scored against the Gunners on Friday night. And I think given the kind of statistics with the silver and base players for midfielders, I think he could be one to just kind of side with here. In another London derby, of course, there's a couple taking place this weekend. So Brentford 2-1 for me. Sergi Canos is the player to watch. Tom, Leeds United against Everton.
It's quite a tough one, this one, because when both games were tight last season, they both won each. But Ellen Road, when it's full, it's intimidating place to go for away teams. But Rafa Benitez, I think he'll set Everton up sort of quite defensively, so try and soak up the pressure and then hit Leeds on the counter, which proved effective against Leeds last season whenever teams did that. So I'm going to go 1-1. I think Rafinha is going to score for Leeds, though, so he's going to be my player to watch. Hopefully, because he's in my teams, in your team as well, Dom. Yeah, he scored in both fixtures last season. I mean, Leeds only scored 2 against Everton, and they both came from Raphinha. So hopefully, he'll add another one this weekend.
Yeah, it was a wonderful goal, I think, as well at Goodison Park, wasn't
Yeah.
it? That scored. Yeah, long distance left-footed shot that gave Jordan Pickford absolutely no chance. And obviously, I hope for my team's sake as well that you're right there, Tom. So honours even, says Tom in North Yorkshire, and we'll switch across the Pennines to yourself, Reese. Reigning champions Manchester City taking on Norwich.
I think there's only one answer here, and it should be a comfortable City success. They should bounce back after, a disappointing performance against Spurs last week. And Norwich have been unfortunate to face 2 of the top Premier League sides in the first 2 fixtures of the season, but they did upset City early on 2 years ago at Carrow Road when they beat them 3-2. So they know what they need to do against City. So they can be interesting to watch here, but for me, it's a City win. I think it should be, you could expect a 3 or 4-0 scoreline. And the player to watch is probably Raheem Sterling. He's had 8 goal contributions in 9 career games against Norwich, so it wouldn't be, a big surprise if he was on the receiving end of a goal here.
Yep, good stat there, Reese. Of course, Raheem Sterling, who stole the headlines for England at Euro 2020 and was brilliant for Gareth Southgate. So comfortable home win for Manchester City to get their season at home, off to a flyer, back on home soil at Eastlands. Brighton and Hove Albion hosting Watford on the south coast. Brighton, of course, who won a tricky first away game of the season at Burnley. But Watford as well probably surprised a few, seeing off Aston Villa. I think this could be another tight encounter for both teams. And it wouldn't surprise me to see a draw here, potentially a 1-1. Watford, who of course may have been sort of considered to be the whipping boys for the season, kind of left, particularly with their supporters, would have left plenty of pleasure, watching them score 3 goals to kickfire their season on Saturday afternoon against obviously a Villa side who will be looking to break into at least the top half this season. So it wouldn't surprise me to sort of see them maintain their unbeaten start to the season here against a Brighton team who conceded 22 goals at home last season. So for that exact reason, my player to watch is Emmanuel Dennis, who of course scored and assisted on debut after joining from Club Brugge in the summer. Tom, back to yourself. Will remain on the south coast here as Southampton host Manchester United.
Yeah, I think there's only going to be one winner here. Southampton looked poor at the weekend. I mean, Adam Armstrong, got off the mark, which I think will do him a load of good to get that sort of first Premier League goal under the belt. But that came from a terrible error from Michael Keane, didn't it? And then United looked clinical. I think the best word for that is that they looked very clinical against Leeds. And I think the obvious one would be to go for Bruno Fernandes, but because I went for Mo Salah earlier, I'm going to go for Mason Greenwood. He ended the season with 6 goals from eight games last season, and then he's already scored on the opening day at the weekend. He played down the middle, sort of as the number 9. So if he carries on playing there, his speed is he's one of the best finishers in the league, left foot and right foot. He's so dangerous, sort of in and around the box. So yeah, I can see him sort of getting a goal or 2 this weekend against a sort of a poor Southampton team and defence without Yannick Vestergaard.
Yeah, would have got in the England team likely if it wasn't for injury as well, Mason Greenwood as well. So still a very exciting prospect on an international basis as well. And as you say, Tom took his goal very well against Leeds at Old Trafford on the weekend. Up to the Midlands, Reece, Wolves, obviously with perhaps a bit of a point to prove after being beaten in a sort of a derby, if you like, against Leicester on Saturday. Jamie Vardy scored a sublime goal. They, of course, now host a team who will really be looking to kind of, well, I suppose prove a point with Nuno Espirito Santo themselves, and with plenty of doubters, including myself. When they had Manchester City to open the season, can go and get themselves perhaps another 3 points here at Molineux.
Yeah, I mean, Spurs proved they didn't need Kane when they beat Man City last week, and it was a perfect start for Nuno. What a way to prove a point than beat the team that everybody expects to win the league. Wolves showed some positives in a tough fixture, against Leicester last weekend, and they're open to further improvement. And being back at home as well with full crowd at Molineux, will play to an advantage as well. But for me, it's a Spurs win. I think they looked great against City, and I think Wolves are going to have to produce a massive performance once again if they are to get anything out of this game. The player to watch for me is Lucas Moura. He scored on his 2 career starts at Molineux, and they need to try and find outlets of way of scoring more goals than relying on just Son. So Moura to get a goal here with his record at Molineux, it wouldn't be a big surprise.
Yeah, Lucas Moura for Reece. I believe I have him on my bench. So after hearing that, I might have to swap him into my team actually. Moving on to the other side of North London, if you like, Arsenal. They host Chelsea at the Emirates Stadium this weekend. I think this probably looks fairly straightforward given the starts to both sides' seasons. I'm going for an away win here. I think Chelsea will win 2-0. Thomas Tuchel, obviously, his first full season in charge of the Blues. And I think they can, pile a bit more pressure on Mikel Arteta's men. And my players to watch is Marcus Alonso. He scored 3 career goals previously against the Gunners. Of course, netted as well. Fantastic free kick against Crystal Palace at the weekend, as well as keeping a clean sheet. And I expect him to do so once again here. And then Tom, to finish, Monday night action, I believe, West Ham against Leicester. This looks, for me, probably one of the games of the weekend.
Yeah, Monday Night Football's back. I think it's going to be a tight one. I mean, I don't really know how West Ham are going to do this season. They've not brought too many players in. They've got Europe, but they look good against Newcastle on Sunday afternoon. Leicester obviously got their campaign after a good start with a win over Wolves. But I can see it being sort of a 1-1, a draw. And then my player to watch is going to be Jarrod Bowen. He scored in both fixtures again last season. He looked really good at the weekend. He almost sort of chalked off Aaron Cresswell's goal if he'd touched the ball sort of a second earlier. But he was probably unlucky not to get an assist. He made 7 shot creating actions in just that one game, which if you compare it to last season, he was averaging sort of 2.7 shot creating actions per game. So he's obviously looking more dangerous, and it wouldn't surprise me if he was involved in a sort of goal contribution this weekend.
Yeah, slightly extended weekend of Premier League action. Monday Night Football is back. Very much looking forward to that one. The Hammers against the Foxes at the London Stadium, and Jarrod Bowen is Tom's player to watch. That's all for the second episode of the Ultimate Fan Fix for the Premier League season. Once again, make sure to send all of your Ultimate Fan teams to our Twitter handle at Ultimate Fan UK. Make sure to give us a follow, and obviously make sure to head over to the Ultimate Fan Plus feed on the Ultimate Fan app to check out Tom, Reece and myself's content. Plenty of stats on there that can help you decide your team, as well as match previews, predictions as the season progresses. Tom and Reese, thank you very much for your time. We'll look forward to catching up with you next week, and obviously enjoy another busy weekend of Premier League action.
Cheers.
Cheers.